Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
This is Bloomberg Businessweek Daily, reporting from the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead, with insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy, plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. The Bloomberg Businessweek Daily podcast with Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, not exactly what many were thinking about when it came to a second term for Donald Trump. And as our Max Abelson puts it, less than 100 days into the new U.S. administration, bankers from Wall Street to Shanghai's Pudong and the City of London are bracing for soured loans, canceled deals, forfeited fees, and perhaps threats to their own jobs. Credit markets are paralyzed while mergers and initial stock offerings are being pulled amid fears of recession. Ouch, a big ouch, not what people were expecting. Max is, of course, Bloomberg News finance reporter joining us here in studio. It's safe to say, if you think about the rally coming off of the election, right? Everybody expected easier regulatory environment, pro-business policies. I think all of the tech CEOs thought all of those cases from the government were not going to happen. And then yet here we are. It's very different.
Is very different. And let's go back to that moment, actually, the post-election giddiness from the kind of billionaire class, from the high echelons of the international finance industry, which is what I focus on, what I write about. I think there was everything you said is so accurate, Carol. But then there was this other dynamic that was happening at the same time too, which was there was a kind of dismissal of the more chaotic side of Trump, the part that zigzags and goes left, but then goes right, and then goes left again. And there was a faith that Trump was going to deliver the things that they wanted and would avoid the things that make them nauseous or that make them angry or that would make the market tank out of a deference that they saw in Trump. They saw that Trump had a deference for the stock market, both for the kind of Manhattan financial elite in particular, and then also for the more abstract stock market as a kind of benchmark, a report card.
Right.
This is what they believed. I mean, this is what they told me and talked about publicly. I wrote a couple of stories for Businessweek and Bloomberg Markets at the time. That, it is fair to say, was really wrong. And they were wrong based on what we're seeing now. The lovely sentence that you read aloud is from Leonard and Claudia and Arno.
You guys
my
wrote
colleagues.
it. I just stole it.
Really, I want to give them credit. Listeners know that it was them who wrote it, not me.
Beautifully written.
And the wrongness has caught them unawares. Are
they really shocked? Like when you talk to them, are they like, oh my God?
Carol, they are surprised, but more than surprised, they're annoyed. They're annoyed and they're angry, and they did not see this coming.
Is it because they took him seriously, but not literally? The famous way that people were described to take the way that Trump spoke. Is it because of what he did during his first term, pointing to the Dow and the S&P 500 as a scorecard?
Or the fact that he was the president for 4 years and he did not put on gigantic tariffs on every country in the world, almost every country, I should say. But, taking someone serious or someone literal, they could have taken Trump at his word. But the thing about his leadership is he really does seem to change his mind pretty quickly. In fact, there was that burst earlier today, in a few hours ago, where I think people, I think that there was a sense of relief in the market that he was going to change his mind again. And, woe to the journalist or to the investor or to the executive who thinks that that they know what he's going to do. I think that the one thing that I feel sure about when it comes to Donald Trump, and I really don't feel sure about much, the one thing I feel sure about is that it's sort of impossible to prognosticate. It's impossible to predict. I really admire anyone who can sort of say with honesty that they've got him right and that they know what's going to happen, because I certainly don't. And these investors who thought that he was going to really kowtow to the markets, they certainly don't either.
Well, what's interesting, Max, and I think about this all the time, that we said so often going into the election that if he wins a second term, he's not going to have the guardrails, right, that he had during the first term, that were people from business, CEOs, I guess from the more, I don't want to say normal community, but people who would say, wait, you can't do that, Mr. President, or you need to think about this. There are some people, though, Scott Bessent, right, who's Treasury Secretary, who understands the importance of markets that function well, understands the impact tariffs have, and yet not so sure that he's a guardrail.
Well, I think...
Or how do the people you talk to, do they say, well, wait a minute, we thought he might be a guardrail?
Well, your excellent question brings to mind Annie Massa and Kathy Burton's absolutely terrific story this morning. That's the Bloomberg Big Take. That's a profile of Bill Ackman, who Bill Ackman is one of many members of, you called it normal, I think a little bit tongue in cheek. I think you're really talking about the professional class, the executive class, the billionaire class.
This is why you're the reporter and the writer.
No. Bill, you can do no wrong in my mind. But what their piece captures so well is the sense of my bad. My bad. Which is that's a quote from Ackman. I mean, he really said that. This is exactly what we're talking about. He predicted pro-growth, pro-business, pro-American. That was Ackman celebrating Trump's victory, saying that this was going to be this incredible administration. And then what does he say on X? I don't think this was foreseeable. I assumed economic rationality would be paramount. The
president telegraphed this. He said this, he said he loves tariffs.
Right.
And in fact, he told our editor-in-chief that for an interview last year. But let's talk about that. Because what he said was that he loved tariffs. He did not, however, talk about the depth, the extent, the volume, the hugeness, to use a Donald Trump word, of his tariffs. I'm thinking of the difference between the moment, speaking of markets, the moment when the markets seemed to breathe a sigh of relief when he used the number 10% tariffs. I'm talking about the big presentation just a few days ago. Feels like ancient history.
Right.
The difference, what he did not telegraph was remember the giant signs, country by country down to like small island nations.
Filled with penguins.
Shout out to penguins, a wonderful animal.
Love them.
But those were high numbers.
Yeah.
Those are high numbers. What he did not telegraph was that mathematical equation that my friend and colleague Matt Levine wrote about, where they're basically doing something that was, I don't know, is unthinkable the right word? How about just simply unpredictable?
Unpredictable. I was going to ask you, just got 20 seconds here. Is there one word from the people that you talked to that kind of came to mind in trying to assess the situation? And I know we've used uncertainty a lot, but I was just curious.
I want to
just quickly
pick the words startled, surprised, and ultimately very disappointed. Those are Tom Glosser's words. And Tom Glosser is the lead independent board member at Morgan Stanley. So this is a guy who's a perfect symbol of that professional class. And he's talking about a group of people who are used to being inner circle, used to being relevant, working to preserve access, and they are startled.
It's a killer story, both of them, and the one on Bill Ackman as well. Max Abelson, Bloomberg News finance reporter, right here in our studio. I feel like those words are something you might use with a teenager. Startled.
Have you had experience?
Just a little. She's really good, though, now. This is Bloomberg.
This is the Bloomberg Businessweek Daily podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Listen live weekday afternoons from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern on Bloomberg.com, the iHeartRadio app, TuneIn, and the Bloomberg Business app. You can also watch us live every weekday on YouTube and always on the Bloomberg Terminal.